Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. I almost said 2022, but that's coming. And we are grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered in my 47 years of doing therapy. These tools are available absolutely free on the website at whyagain.org. And if you go to that website and click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. The book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 17 years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience into part of the infallible guidance system that each one of us has been given. And you can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Download it, print it off, copy it, and use it as often as you'd like. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, and you can get access to the completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through that worksheet process and or given powerful testimonials about how the application of those tools has improved the quality of their life and relationships. And we hope you do that soon and often, because it frequently leads to comments or questions or testimonials. And if you have any of that to share with us, give us a call at 563-999-3581. Call that number and press 1, and we can have a conversation. Today is the 356th day of the year, and this year we have been doing the Course in Miracles workbook lessons. Today's lesson simply reads, Sickness is but another name for sin. And in this work we're talking about sin having the meaning of being energy that is off the mark. Healing is but another name for God, light, love, and creation. The miracle is thus a call to the Creator. Creator, you promised you would never fail to answer my call, your offspring. Any offspring might make to you. It does not matter where he or she is. It doesn't matter what seems to be his or her problem, nor what he or she believes they have become. They are your offspring, and you will answer them. The miracle reflects your love, and thus it answers them. Your name replaces every thought of error or sin. Your name gives answer to your offspring, because a call to your name is but a call to his or her own true nature. So that's the Course in Miracles lesson 356. And we're also doing the Course in Miracles experiment commentary from Pam Grout. And her section 356 is titled, Beam Me Down, Scotty. She quotes someone who said, why do we accept the programming from our youth as the source of all truths? Pam writes, other than the bit about drinking 8 glasses of water, most of what I learned as a kid is limiting and self-defeating. So today I pledge to reinstall the attitudes I had before I learned it was, quote, wrong, close quote, to jump on the bed. And I discard these 6 childhood lessons. Number 1 that I'm discarding is the admonition to wipe that silly grin off your face. And I'm going to replace it with loosen up, claim you're silly. The second one that I'm going to discard is be careful. I'm going to replace it with throw caution to the wind, take risks, fall flat on your face. Rule number 3 I'm going to discard says don't speak to strangers. I'm going to replace that one with speak to everyone, speak until there are no strangers. Lesson 4 I'm going to throw out the window. Don't leave the house without clean underwear. I'm going to replace it with it doesn't matter what kind of underwear or shoes or purse you're wearing. What matters are the dreams written on your heart. Number 5, the rule I'm going to throw out is stay in line. I'm going to replace that one with anything is possible and you're free to adapt any guidelines you choose. There is no line. Number 6, I'm going to throw out the rule that says always look out for number 1. And I'm going to replace that one with give everything you've got to everyone you see, no exceptions. That's Pam Grout's Lesson 356. Loosen up and claim you're silly. Throw caution to the wind, take risks, and fall flat on your face. Speak to everyone until there are no strangers. It doesn't matter what kind of underwear or shoes or purse you're wearing. What matters are the dreams written on your heart. Anything is possible, and you're free to adapt any guidelines you choose, but remember, there is no line. Give everything you've got to everyone you see, no exceptions. So, that's our Course in Miracles lesson and the Pam Grout commentary. What offering would you have for us today? 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. How can we support you today? We are getting very near the end of the year. We are only 9 days left in the year, and we have about 48 minutes left on the air in our first hour to take your calls, comments, questions, suggestions for ways to spend this next hour. We had our support group last night, and we did another segment of the Course in Miracles Made Easy presentation that was being given to us by Alan Cohen. And I know I've mentioned this before, but there are currently 3 books that I listen to or read at least once a year. One of them is Awareness by Anthony DeMello. One of them is Course in Miracles Made Easy by Alan Cohen. And the other is The Tao Made Easy by Alan Cohen. And Alan has been studying the Course in Miracles for many, many years, and he has a way, one of his gifts is that he can take very complex, deep ideas and situations and make them understandable in common everyday parlance or language. So that was a big part of what we were doing last night, along with introducing some of the newer group members to the concept of how we are the ones creating our own emotions. And it began right at the very beginning of the group when people were just giving updates, and somebody was talking about having lost a friend to COVID and describing that friend and saying, I feel very badly because this friend of mine was very irritating. And I interrupted and said, well, in this group, we don't talk about someone or something outside of us creating irritation. We talk about how each one of us chooses in each new present moment what interpretation we are going to place on our experience of life. And it is that interpretation that either resonates negative emotional states that we brought with us into that moment or creates those negative Nothing that you experience is caused by anything outside of you. You experience only the effects of your choice. And you might say, well, how could that be? What about those people that just got hit by a hurricane? And what about the people in Kentucky who got tornadoes that did so much devastation? Well, the idea is that if you look at that and think about all of the devastation and all of the sadness, you're going to create one experience. If you look at that and you look at all of the helpers, you'll create another experience. So I was driving home last night. I think the radio show is called 1A. There was a person who'd been down there to report on the devastation in Kentucky and Tennessee and wherever they had all these massive tornadoes last week. And this man kept saying, I can't tell this story enough. I went to this church and I found that they were handing out, these, what I thought were the church members, where they're handing out supplies and water and to these families that had had their homes devastated. And so I went to the minister of this church and I said, who are these, congregants over here? And he said, oh, those aren't congregants. So we went over and interviewed the people that are standing out in the rain handing out bottles of water to families who have lost their homes. And what he found? They had their home wiped out. They were living in a shelter, but they donated their time to help others who had lost everything or lots of what they had. And so here's this reporter who, instead of focusing on all of the devastation and the lost lives, he chose to focus on the power of that compassion, that loving humanity, that even in the face of tremendous personal loss, this family decided to go help others. That's an example, from my mind, of what the way of mastery means when it says, you never experience anything you haven't chosen. I'm choosing how to interpret and respond to the life events around me. And how I choose to interpret and respond to them is what creates my experience. If I look for the helpers, I'm always going to find helpers. If I look for things to be sad about, I can always find things to be sad about. So the Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery are trying to help us understand what it is that we actually do with this creative force that we are given control over. We're given dominion over our own thoughts. And it's what we do with those thoughts that create our experience of life. And if you don't understand that that's what's happening, then you don't have access to the mechanism that can change your life for the better. So that's what we're here to help people question for themselves and learn anew and get better and better at applying in their lives. I'm the one that creates my experience of life in each new present moment, and I do that with the way that I choose to interpret and respond to the events that unfold around me. It is powerful to wake up and recognize that we aren't taught that. I was 45 years old before I had this presented to me this clearly, this directly, with no qualifications and no rationalizations. I had somebody talking to me this morning about getting a visit from her in-laws. And her husband's parents, for whatever reason, whatever the status is in their lives right now, she said, these are the most negative people I've ever had, memory of being around. They just complain about everything. And her husband said to her after they left, do you think it's bad that I don't want to be around them more than once a year? And we were talking about that. We were talking about how when he's around his parents and their intense negativity, he gets very nasty and negative. Her husband gets nasty and negative when he's around his parents. And he's not normally like that. He's normally pleasant and optimistic and loving. So the question becomes, is it just being around his parents that's creating his experience? And the answer in this work and direct observation that we make over and over again with this kind of work is no, it's his choice of how to interpret and respond to that. So if he's with his parents and they start being negative, and he thinks they should not be that way, they should be more positive, they should be more loving, they should quit criticizing other people. If he adopts that perspective, that negative critical view of his parents, he's doing exactly what he's accusing them of doing. He's complaining about them. And he's comparing who and what they are in the moment to his hopes or dreams or shoulds about them. And they're never going to stack up to that. And so he creates the experience for himself that says his parents are bad or wrong, they're doing it wrong, they're getting it wrong, they're doing life the wrong way, and they should change. If, on the other hand, he would use a filter like the thought that everyone is doing the best they can in each moment with whatever resources they have, if he would choose that filter to look at his parents and what they're saying and doing, he would create a very different experience for himself. He would see his parents, when they're saying nasty, negative things about other people, he would see his parents through the light that says they are in pain, fear, or sadness, because we understand in this work that nasty, negative, insulting, critical statements can't come out of a person unless there is pain, fear, or sadness in that person. So if he chose that filter when his parents got nasty and negative, his experience would be one of having compassion for his parents. Oh, there are my parents. These poor people, their lives have been so rough. They were raised by people that were so nasty and negative, or they've had so many traumas in their life. Here's a negative effect resonating out of one of my parents because of the traumas in their past or their lack of mature resources and coping skills for dealing with life in this moment or dealing with their pain. Just think about that. I create my experience of someone who's nasty and negative in the moment. And if I hold up a thought that says everybody should be loving, everybody should be aware that they create their own experience, everybody should be able to smile and send loving thoughts and energy to everyone around them. Then when I encounter somebody who's not doing that, what do I create? I create a judgment that says they're bad or they're wrong or they're damaged or they're broken because they're not doing what I think they should. And what do I create in my experience when I live in that energy of judgment? I create tension. I create a host of negative emotions, specific flavor of negative emotion I choose in that moment. I'm creating that. They didn't create that by the expression of their pain, fear, or sadness. I'm creating it. And if I wake up and become aware that I'm the one creating that, and I don't like the experience of it, I can choose again. I can choose differently the next time, in the next instant. So, that's what we're hoping to introduce people to, the possibility that there are ways to look at our lives, our life experience, that help us understand how what we choose as interpretations and responses is actually what creates our experience of life in the moment, not these energies that we call the outside events. And it begins right there at the beginning. If I can catch myself, here's this concept that Dr. Michael Rice uses. He calls it responsibility communication. He calls it regulatory speech. That's what it is. If I recognize that every time I let myself think or speak as though this person is irritating me, that situation is traumatic, this situation is overwhelming, that situation is wonderful, this one is tragic. Every time I let myself think or speak that way and I don't catch it and correct it, I keep programming myself to believe that I'm a victim of the outside energies and the people around me. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Dr. Tim. This is such a great topic. I have two angles, but I want to start, if it's okay, going back to the lesson, sickness is another name for sin, healing is a name for God. The miracle is thus a call to Him. So is the miracle in this case the choice to put the filter on, to choose to see the best in the other person? And is that, I just didn't understand that sentence.
Okay, well, this is one of the things that gets so goofy with the Course in Miracles. The miracle is the actuality of life the way it is. Right?
Okay.
It says the words, the miracle is thus a call to the Creator. But what they're really saying is, there is no sickness. It's just another name for sin, which means energy that's off the mark, or a false perception. And the word healing is just another name for all that is, for light, for love, for creation, for seeing life accurately. There's no healing to be done except for the removal of false perception. That is the primary, learning from the Course in Miracles. That, another way that it is stated in the Course in Miracles is that a miracle is simply a choice to move from the perception of fear to the perception of love. And if Michael Rice were here, he might say, the miracle becomes evident to you when you choose the spiritual faculty of true perception. In other words, when you get to see the world as it actually is, then you realize there's no pain, there's no sadness, it's all a false perception that creates our internal experience, but that external actuality doesn't exist in that way. So if you could see your brother and sister as this being of brilliance and light, regardless of what they're saying or doing in the moment, so they're either extending that brilliance and light and that loving energy and creativity, or their actions in the moment can be seen by you as simply a call for help and healing. And if you could see that in each moment, you would not have anger or sadness or frustration or pain. What can I do to help you? What's the matter? How can we fix this? And starts looking in between the parent and the child and in the child's environment for things that might restore calm and peace and either, a full stomach or sleep or a dry diaper or, some maybe clothes that are irritating. The parent starts acknowledging that this screaming and crying coming from this infant is a sign of pain or suffering inside the infant. Mm-hmm. Now, likewise, a wounded adult, same age, 20 or 30, male or female, doesn't matter, who was beaten or neglected or attacked when he or she was crying as a child, in that moment can take it personally, can start having thoughts like, what is wrong with you? I just fed you. I just changed you. And they have shaken baby syndrome and all of these other horrible things that happen. Why? Because a wounded person is interacting with another wounded person.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a rage come up in me and my mind wants to show me a picture of how I am justified in my rage at so-and-so, that's me being wounded, responding to somebody who's acting from their woundedness. And that just perpetuates a system of more woundedness. But no one in that moment is seeing clearly this miracle of life, these two miracles of the creative energy in expression as form that we call human beings. No one is seeing it clearly, and so people aren't responding in that respectful, loving, connected, compassionate way. The miracle is not the call to the Creator, but the ability to see creation as it actually is. Right? A miracle is simply awakened perception to the truth of life. So sickness is just another name for energy that's off the mark, and healing is just another name for God, light, love, creation, all that is the way it actually is. When you perceive creation as it actually is, you will understand there was never any need for healing, nothing was ever broken, and miracles will be the natural flow of life. I mean, these lessons over the past few months have been telling us time and time again, if you perceive actuality, if you perceive life through the Christ mind, you realize there's nothing to change, to fix, to heal. Lesson 352 says, judgment and love are opposites. The flow of life and all that is, and all the creative energy is just actually there. Judging it means I'm stepping away from it. Now I'm not in the flow and I don't get to experience it. I'm comparing it to some mental image that says it should be other than it is. And so now I've created a tension. I've created a sense of separation out of which comes fear. And it's all in that instant of judgment. Well, in order to judge something, I have to perceive myself as separate from it. Can you see that?
I can see that.
Can you see just that much, that in order to judge something, I have to perceive myself as separate from it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's the original error, which is this false perception that's based on our limited senses that says, I am separate from you. You and I are different. And in that moment, the next step is either you're better than me or you're worse than me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not the actuality. Actuality, as Einstein and other physicists point out to us, is that we're all energy and we're all connected. Even as consciousness, we're all connected to the same consciousness. So every time I begin to make a judgment, I had to begin with a false perception that says I'm different than the thing I'm judging. So it is error in thought that leads to the sensations that I experience that I call sickness. And if the error in thought is removed, then I'm just in direct connection with all that is.
My being in direct connection can have a healing effect then on someone who isn't feeling good, for instance. What I'm getting at is, for me to, the story you said about the parents-in-law who were so difficult, I can understand taking the stance that, oh, there they are, they've certainly been through a lot. If they're acting this way, they are in pain. I'm going to get specific now. My grandson called me last night on his way, driving for half an hour to get to an AA meeting, and telling me that he had been terribly depressed and he didn't even want to admit it, and he's been painting a false picture about how well he's doing. He said, I've been choosing to be upbeat and to tell people I'm doing well because I want it to be that way. But the fact is, I'm struggling with depression. And so I'm listening to this and feeling as if there's nothing I can do but listen and care for him. But I am separate from him because I'm thinking I can't do anything for him. And I am perceiving him as somebody who's really hurting and in trouble. I'm trying to put this together to step back into the miracle. I'm reminded of a story. Ellen reminded me of it the other day. She said she was talking about, somebody asked her, what if your daughter said she wanted to commit suicide? And Byron Katie said, if my daughter committed suicide, I would know she did the most loving thing she could do toward herself, to take herself out of pain, and I would celebrate that, some version of that. And I'm thinking, whoa, that is so far from anything I could say. I get scared, my favorite miserable. I go into being afraid on behalf of Jacob, fearful because before
multiple hospitalizations, he had the diagnosis of manic depressive, he had a classic presentation, and lots of turbulence, a very rough ride for probably several years. And
he didn't allow me to see my children physically for 11 years. I've seen the youngest boy one time, and I've seen the older boy twice in 11 years. And the second time, those visits have only been in the last 6 months. So it's been a challenging 11 years. So he sent me a text today saying that the younger boy is refusing to get immunized for COVID, and that he is done with him, and that he's not going to fund his education anymore, and he's going to kick him out, and he's going to take the car back, and he's going to do all these things. So to me, immediately I was triggered, but I also could step outside and say to myself, when people are, he's crying for support. He's asking for support. And so, but I also, I'm human. So, and I had that first firing of, look, curse word. It's so funny that he used the exact language that I told him when he was started all this. I said, you're going to bleep things up, and you're going to call on me to come in and clean up, pick up the pieces. And he even said
so
that
you got
in
what
his
you asked
text. Right.
Be careful.
You're energetically connected to everyone in your family, but especially your grandsons when things like this happen. And so if you sit there in fear and you're energetically connected to them, how can you rationalize that that's a good thing, that you're somehow helping them by sitting there in fear?
Oh, yeah.
Good. If you can't, then don't, and choose any of the tools, all of the above kinds of tools, to restore yourself to that calm, loving space as soon as possible and as often as possible. And all of the rationalization, go ahead.
That involves having a kind of confidence is okay. I guess I could say I don't really believe that.
I'm not going to go along. I'm not going to go there with you. I'm
why?
going to suggest. Well, I'm going to suggest that that's not what that means.
Okay.
What it means is that I recognize as I sit here in fear, I'm not helping.
Oh yeah.
Now I may not have control over my grandson and what impact these medications have on him, or whether or not he likes AA meetings, or whether or not he's depressed. I don't have control over his body chemistry and family history and genetics. But I do have the ability to have some impact on my energy state in this moment. And I can sit here in the fear and pour a lot of energy into it and say, woe is me, and oh, my poor grandson, and nothing's helping, and oh, the baby's going over the dam in the little reed basket, and oh my goodness, life is going to end. I could sit here in that energy, or having learned what I've learned so far from the Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery and EFT tapping and Michael Rice worksheets and targeted journaling and 3 early memories of conflict, I could pick up tools and move myself into a more loving, peaceful state. And I don't know what impact that's going to have on everything around me. I just know it is going to be better than sitting here in fear. Fear that I generate while I'm busy telling myself that the fear is caused by things outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't require belief that everything is fine and everything's going to work out just perfectly. That doesn't require that. That just requires the understanding, the direct observation that if I sit here in fear, I'm not helping.
That's good. You're right on it, because what I want to be able to say in all sincerity is everything's going to be okay. And I don't say that because I can't say that. What I do say is something like, all I know from the bottom of my heart is life is wonderful and well worth living. Be gentle with herself. I invoke Tim A's, be gentle with yourself. Give yourself time. I say the good things, and maybe they help, I don't know, but that isn't my concern. You're bringing it right back home, right here, right now, with this person here, and that has to be done. For me, I have to keep doing that. I go out of myself and get scared, and I'm way away from my center when doing that. I can be there with him and let him do what he's doing. That is just hard, but that's what's required. That's the best thing.
Well, it's the only thing. You can't fix him or change him anyway. And the more you focus on him, the less energy you have available to focus on the one thing in this equation that you do have some impact on, which is what's the mind energy you're creating and sending out into this field.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Think about the gentleman we were talking about earlier, where his parents come to town, and his wife, they're driving home after spending time with his parents, and he's bitching and moaning about his parents being so negative. What's he doing? He's complaining. What's he complaining about? He's complaining that his parents complain so much.
Right.
And then he has the perspective where he asks his wife, am I like that? So at least, he's got that much perspective where he can step back and ask a question. And then she's able to say, well, the truth is, when they're around, you get very negative. Now, in that situation, is there anything he can do to change his parents to be less negative? No. Is there something he could do to be more positive and loving within himself? Yes, all kinds of things. That's where his energy is going to be most productively spent. And the same thing for you. Can you fix or change your grandson, or the effects of the medications on him, or the impact of the AA meetings on him? No. Do you have the ability, once you become aware that you're sitting there back again in your favorite miserable, do you have the ability to choose differently in that moment? Yes. Do you now have access to a whole series of tools that can help you change your state of mind? Yes. Now the only question left for you is, will you pick those tools up and use them? Therefore, positively impacting the only thing you've actually got an impact on here.
Boy, that's really, really necessary letting go.
Yeah, you're out there tilting at windmills, right? You're out there saying, this is bad, this is horrible, this is wrong, I would never be able to survive if my grandson did this suicide thing, and I can't believe that Byron Katie would be able to do that, and say, where's all that energy getting focused right now in you? On anything that you have control over? No. It's on all of these theoretical, fear-based focuses of attention, and that's not useful to you or your grandson.
Right.
Think about it in this sense. This phrase just popped into my head, and you've heard me say this a number of times. Guy Finley says, there is nothing more practical than true spirituality. And what am I calling you to right now? The practical application of your mind energy. Are you going to apply what you've learned and your ability to focus your attention on things that might actually change your energy and mood for the better right now? Or are you going to stay focused on a whole bunch of things you have no control over?
Right.
It's the practicality that makes this so valuable. And the fact of the matter is, Byron Katie does not know what she would think or feel if her daughter committed suicide. She's hoping that she would feel that she would have the thought that her daughter did what was most loving, and that she would feel joyful for her daughter about that. But we never know what is going to go on for us, what's going to get resonated from us, from deep inside of us, etc. We never know until it happens.
Right, that's true.
So any thoughts, any mind energy you might spend on comparing yourself to Byron Katie and saying, oh, she's more holy than me, or she's more spiritual than me, or I could never do that, is, again, it's just a waste of your mind energy.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm calling it a waste because it's in judgment, it's in comparison. And it's a waste in the sense that it's focusing on things you've got no control over. It's okay if you want to do that, but it isn't productive. It isn't practically assisting your situation or your grandsons in any way.
Yeah, this reminds me of the talk we had about putting people on pedestals. And in a way, as soon as you're separated from somebody, you either put them on a pedestal or you put yourself on a pedestal.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Well, I went back into the Course in Miracles to read what is sin, and they have a wonderful little treatise about that. I won't go into it, but because that lesson was one of the ones that if I were Pam Grout, I would have said, rip the sucker out. I just didn't want to deal with those words because those words it would take a lot of messing around in my brain to understand. The miracle is thus a call to him. So thanks for straightening that out so I don't have to rip the whole sucker out. But anyway, I'm going to have a look at the idea of sin again.
And think about the word call there as a leaning into, not a begging or calling for help from someone or something outside of you. It's just getting in connection with the truth of life. I mean, it's a literary use of these words here that says it's a call to him. Well, what does that mean? Hey, God, I need your help. No, it's not that. The Course in Miracles never says that. The Course in Miracles works diligently. Even in this lesson later on, it says, look, you are him and he is you, and we are we, and we are all together. Right? Your name, Creator, gives the answer. Your name, your essence, your Shem from the ancient Aramaic, the vibrational energy that makes you you, that's what gives the answer to your offspring. Because to get in touch with your energy is to get in touch with his own energy. Right? They're using the word call here, but it really means to just be aware, be in direct contact with, have true perception of. So if I'm truly perceiving God, light, love, and creation, I'm truly perceiving myself. This was one of the big lessons that Alan Cohen was speaking so clearly to last night. When you clearly perceive the Creator, you clearly perceive yourself. This is a core message from the Course in Miracles and Way of Mastery. You remain as you were created to be. You were created by the Creator in its likeness and image. So if you just substitute the word call here for this connection to the Creator, is the connection to yourself.
Yeah, I have this urge always to say or do something. I don't have much faith in just being a space of loving allowance and listening. I've got this idea that it's not enough. I have to say the right thing, do something. This is just a big piece of work that needs to be taken care of. And I don't imagine I'm alone in that. It's like becoming totally empty and trusting that that is the best thing, not only a thing, but...
So here's something written by Jeff Foster. It was posted by somebody I went to graduate school with on Facebook. I'm just going to read this. Title of it is, Let Yourself Rest. If you're exhausted, rest. If you don't feel like starting a new project, don't. If you don't feel the urge to make something new, just rest in the beauty of the old, the familiar, and the known. If you don't feel like talking, stay silent. If you're fed up with the news, turn it off. If you want to postpone something until tomorrow, postpone it. If you want to do nothing, let yourself do nothing today. Feel the fullness of the emptiness, the vastness of the silence, the sheer life in your unproductive moments. Time does not always need to be filled. You are enough simply in your being. The Tao Te Ching has a line where it says, do nothing and nothing is left undone.
I love that. You know, Dr. Tim, that was like getting an infusion. I felt as if you was like a higher pump, and you were pumping my heart back up to its normal size. I love that. Thanks.
You're entirely welcome and far more deserving than you yet realize.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. You are a funny guy.
I'm just telling the truth. Just here calling them as I see them. What's that thing about the umpires? One says, there's only balls and strikes, and I call them as I see them. And the other one says, no, I'm an umpire, and there's balls and strikes, and I call them as they are. And the third umpire says, well, the way I see it, there's only pitches until I call them. So you are enough just as you are, whether I think you are or anybody else thinks you are or even you think you are. Yet you can create the experience of not being enough because that's what we're given the gift of awareness for, that we get to create our experience. And it is okay to slow down. It is okay to do what you would consider nothing based on the cultural prescriptions to accomplish this or that.
Faith and trust.
What and trust?
Faith.
Okay.
Faith. Just like faith and trust are practically the same to me. Like trust. Yeah. So, Dr. Tim, I guess I'm asking for a sneak preview of what you're going to do next year in the radio show. Have you thought about that? It's none of my business.
I don't know.
But
I don't know about next year. I do know that this next week I will be here again on tomorrow and Friday. I will not be doing the internet show at all next week. So from 11 to noon next week there'll be no Mind Shifters radio. I don't know what Michael and Jeannie are planning to do, but and that next week there won't be support groups. I'm taking that week off.
That's wonderful. What are you going to do?
I'm just going to be with family and friends and not have to worry about the internet show at 11. And I'm not seeing patients because I've learned over the years that no matter how much people beg and plead to have sessions between Christmas and New Year's, only about 5 to 10% of them ever show up. So I'm not going to come into the office and see patients, and so I'm not going to drive into the office just to do the internet show.
Oh, that's great. And are you feeling are there any adjustments and stuff because of this Omicron thing? And we've changed some plans. We've not flying to Florida. We decided to postpone till things settle down a bit, and then we'll visit my daughter.
Well,
so
there aren't really adjustments for me because I have been simply, staying close to home, doing basically nothing but working.
You deserve the vacation.
Thank you. And you sent a text asking if I was going to do best ofs, but no, that's a tremendous amount of work to edit those and get them uploaded, and I have a plate full of other responsibilities. So
I understand.
So you sound like you're feeling better. I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, I feel human today. I mean, there's still little vestiges left, my ribs still hurts, and actually my hips are hurting, which I don't know what that's got to do with it, but yeah, it's felt human today, and I think Dad will come home either today or tomorrow. So.
All right.
I'll
remind us all that we come from love, we're made of love, we are love, and everything else is false. Thank you, Susan. Have a wonderful show.
Thank you.